Hi, everyone. Tonight we're digging through a dream made of stone. You're walking barefoot on the edge of sleep, just outside the last streetlight's reach. The air's cooler here, quieter. Then your toes catch something. You look down and see a shallow dip in the earth, perfectly rounded with ridges radiating from the center, like a ripple in time. It's a dinosaur footprint, as wide as a trash can lid but pressed into rock like it happened yesterday. You crouch, touch it, and time for a second folds like bedsheets. Welcome to the world of fossils, the Earth's memory foam. While your memory forgets passwords, Earth remembers for 300 million years. Tonight, we're going to lie beside the bones of giants and let the silence do the talking. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. Let me know in the comments below. I'm always curious where these quiet little science stories are drifting to, and if this video helped you while you were there. Now relax, take a deep breath, and join me gently on this evening's journey. You're standing on what used to be a floodplain. But not any old mud pit, this is sacred real estate for paleontologists. Because under your feet a long time ago, a dinosaur stopped walking and made a mark. Just one step. That's all it took for time to catch it, like a Polaroid flash, preserving not just its foot, but its paws. You crouch lower, and the surface starts to shimmer in your mind, like the layers of a dream returning. Fossils, despite their popularity in plastic museum displays, aren't bones turned to stone by magic. They're bones that got very, very lucky. The odds of something dying, then being preserved, then discovered tiny. Laughably tiny. It's like tossing a piece of toast off a cliff and expecting it to land butterside up 1,000 years later, intact and still slightly warm. For something to fossilize, the conditions have to be just right. Rapid burial, so scavengers don't snack low oxygen, so bacteria don't break it down, and minerals in the groundwater that slowly seep in and replace the original organic material. It's like sleep paralysis, but for eternity. You slide your fingers over the edge of the fossil. It's cooler than the surrounding rock. How is that even possible? It reminds you of the weird comfort of being held in place like weighted blankets or quiet elevators. Fossils are held eternally. They don't age. They don't rot. They're time's security deposit. The earliest known dinosaur fossils are about 230 million years old. But fossilization didn't wait for the cool kids. We've found bacterial fossils going back 3.5 billion years. Yes, billion. Think about that Earth had acne before it had dinosaurs. Now imagine being the first human to find one. No textbooks, no fossil guide for dummies. Just a weird, ridged shape in a rock that kind of sort of maybe looks like a giant bird foot. Maybe you'd think it was a dragon, or a god, or just a prank from the mountain. Even today, scientists still debate what some fossils are. Take the Charnia fossil. It looks like a fern but has no stem leaves or mouth. Is it an animal, a fungus, an art installation from deep time? You lie back on the imaginary field, eyes scanning the sky. Somewhere in the Milky Way, another planet might be pressing a memory into rock right now. A lizard, a bird, a something. Fossils are more democratic than we give them credit for. They don't care what species you are, only that you lie still and let time do its job. Here's the odd fact of the night. There's such a thing as coprolite. Fossilized poop. Yep, even digestion leaves a mark. And if you're curious, yes, scientists analyze dino dung like it's treasure, which to them it is. You can learn what a creature ate, where it traveled, even what parasites it carried, all from one very ancient bathroom break. You roll onto your side and the ground shifts into a prehistoric panorama. Dinosaurs shuffle by, some feathered, some scaly. They don't roar, they just exist. quietly. Asleep on their feet, maybe. Like you nodding off between words. Fossils are proof that sleep isn't just for the living. They're the most literal evidence we have that something once stopped moving and never started again. But here's the strange part, that stillness creates motion. Fossils move ideas. They stir up thoughts. They change textbooks. They send shivers into the present. And footprints, those are special. Bones tell us how a creature died. Footprints tell us how it lived. How fast did it move? Did it limp? Was it walking alone or in a pack? Scientists can even tell if a dinosaur slipped. That's right. There's a fossil out there where a creature stumbled 65 million years ago, and we know. So what about this footprint you found? Is it real? Or did your brain just stitch one together from cracks in the rock? That's the slippery thing about fossils. They blur lines between what was and what we want to have been. Still, the print remains. Your fingers drift along its edge again, and you swear you can feel the pulse of something not alive, not dead, just paused. You yawn. The night stretches. Somewhere a cricket chirps, but it sounds prehistoric in your ears. You think of time not as a straight line, but as layers soft stacked like mattresses beneath you. Fossils are the crumbs left behind in those sheets. And as your eyes start to flutter closed, one question lingers. If fossils are time's way of remembering, what is your way of being remembered? But don't answer now. Sleep on it. The earth is heavier beneath you now, not in weight, but in meaning. You've slipped past the surface like drifting through layers of a dream. You're not walking anymore. You're buried. Not in a scary way. More like tucked in. Safe. Still. You're inside the dirt with a dinosaur. It's not alive, obviously. It's not even a skeleton. Not yet. Just a body giant, warm-blooded or cold-blooded. We'll argue about that later. Still soft in places, still full of stuff. Muscles. Fat. Intestines. And maybe, just maybe, a belly full of unchewed ferns or half-digested meat. Because here's the truth. Before something can become a fossil, it has to die. That's not the sad part. The sad part is what usually happens next. Most bodies don't fossilize. They rot, get picked apart, melt into the soil like old fruit. They vanish. So why didn't this one? It all starts with sediment. Soft, silty mud. Picture a lazy river, a swamp, maybe a flash flood. Something fast enough to bury a dinosaur before nature could call dibs. That's the key, quick burial. Think of it like a prehistoric emergency blanket. And it has to be the right sediment too. Not too acidic, not too oxygen-rich. No worms, no munching bacteria, just a calm, anoxic hug of earth that presses gently until the body begins to turn into memory. You shift, imagining the weight of mud sealing over your skin. It's not gross. It's oddly comforting, like gravity tucking you in. Inside the body, things start changing. Slowly. First, the soft bits go. Flesh, organs, eyes if they're still there. And then the hard bits, the bones, begin their transformation. Minerals in the groundwater creep in like tiny sleepwalkers. They seep into the porous bone and slowly replace the calcium with something sturdier, silica, calcite, pyrite, if you're feeling fancy. It's not like dunking a cookie in tea. It's more like pouring a stone into a sponge, one drip at a time, over millennia. Eventually, the bones stop being bones. They become rocks shaped like bones, but they still look like the real deal. Fossils are sneaky that way. Some call this process permineralization. You can call it mineral sleep. Now here's the odd thing. Not all fossils are bones. Some are impressions, just outlines left behind in sediment. like a creature sat on a waterbed and never got up. Some are casts made when the original bone dissolves, but the space it left behind fills with minerals instead, nature's own 3D printer. Others are trace fossils, footprints, burrows, bite marks, even poop, hello again, coprolites. A dinosaur could be completely gone, but its shadow lingers. You wiggle your toes inside your dream soil. A beetle scuttles by your ear. Everything is muted here. Time is thick. The dinosaur beside you, maybe it's a hadrosaur. Gentle, herbivorous, big snoot. It's laying on its side neck curved in sleep. Not that it knew it was dying. Maybe it just laid down. Maybe it was already weak. Maybe the flood came fast. Scientists still debate how likely mass burials were. Were they freak events? Was every dino death a tragedy? Or was death just part of the season, like leaves falling or teenage heartbreak? You feel that strange moment where death overlaps with preservation, like two gears clicking in sync. For the fossilization to work, time has to stop moving in all the right ways. You need a still body, a still landscape, a still layer of sediment that doesn't get crushed, twisted, melted, or thrown around by tectonic tantrums. And then you need it to last. For millions of years. We're talking patience beyond comprehension. You know how long your leftovers last in the fridge. Now multiply that by 65 million and subtract a hungry roommate. That's how careful nature has to be for a fossil to survive. Here's a weird but true fact. Some fossils still contain proteins. Not full DNA, sorry, Jurassic Park, but collagen fragments, whispers of the animal's biology. In 2005, scientists extracted soft tissue from a 68 million-year-old T. rex femur, blood vessel structures, possibly red blood cells. The scientific world flipped out harder than a caffeine-drunk grad student. Some cried fake, others cried joy. The debate still simmers. But let's get personal. You're lying under the mud now beside this half-sunken dinosaur, and it occurs to you this creature didn't know it would be remembered. It didn't know 100 million years later some nervous paleontologist would dig it up, brush it with a makeup brush, and whisper, "Oh my God, it just stopped." And isn't that weirdly beautiful, because what is fossilization if not a cosmic kindness? A way for the universe to say, you mattered. You still matter. Even if it's just your toe bone. You reach out and touch the imaginary ribcage beside you. It's stone now, but it still feels like something you could fall asleep beside. Safe. Like curling up next to a sleeping giant. A creature that once breathed, ran, blinked in sunlight, and now sleeps in the earth so you could meet it in a dream. The wind shifts. Dust rises. Somewhere above, millions of years later, a team of scientists will argue in a field about whether this fossil belonged to Iguanodon rex or Rexodon iguana. Someone will write a paper. Someone else will refute it. Someone will tweet about it with a sarcastic meme. But down here, down in the sediment, there's only stillness and the soft sound of mineral sleep. You blink. Not because you're awake now, more like you're shifting to a deeper layer of the dream. You're no longer lying beside a sleeping dinosaur. You're lying inside the earth itself, wrapped in stone, a fossil in training, and above you, time. Lots of it. It presses down in layers like ancient quilts. Thick ones, each made of crushed shells, dead leaves, ash, volcanic glass pollen, pollen, more pollen, and the bones of 1,000 things that stopped moving. You're inside what geologists call strata-stacked layers of sedimentary rock. They're how we read Earth's past, like tree rings or your childhood diary entries you now regret. And tonight, you're learning how to read it too. fossils don't just tell us about the creature, they tell us when. Because every layer of sediment has a time signature, even if it can't spell. It speaks through position. The deeper it is, the older it is. This idea has a name: stratigraphy. You stretch one sleepy hand upward and imagine slicing through the earth like a lasagna of eons. The top layer. Maybe that's from the Ice Age. Mammoth bones, human tools, a McDonald's straw probably. Below that, the late Cretaceous. Dinosaurs, fern spores, the occasional meteorite grain. And below that, Jurassic, Triassic. Pre-dino eras filled with weird sea monsters and bugs the size of cats. Keep going, and eventually the Earth forgets about bones entirely. You hit the era of bacteria, algae, and soft jelly blobs that didn't believe in skeletons. The strange part is that the Earth rarely keeps this timeline clean. It folds, cracks, pushes ancient layers on top of newer ones. Like someone kicked your fossil lasagna down the stairs. So scientists cheat a little. They look for index fossil species that lived in a specific time window and spread everywhere like the pop stars of prehistory. If you find one of those, you've got a date. And if you're thinking, wait, how accurate is that? Then congratulations, you're thinking like a paleontologist. Because scientists still debate the reliability of relative dating. It's good but messy, like estimating someone's age based on their fashion choices. That's why we also use radiometric dating. You're probably not in the mood for atomic decay right now, but let's say some rocks have radioactive elements that decay at predictable rates, like an internal clock ticking away the years in isotope time. Uranium-238 becomes lead over 4.5 billion years. Potassium-40 becomes argon over 1.3 billion. Carbon-14. That's for young stuff, only good for about 50,000 years. Still older than your ex's high school mixtape. You sigh, eyes half-lidded as the concept settles in. You're lying beneath miles of stories, and each fossil is a bookmark in that epic saga. A fish jaw here, a fern stem there, a whole sleeping ankylosaur with its armor intact, and a fossilized last meal in its stomach. It was salad, if you're wondering. And then, silence. Because the deeper you go, the fewer fossils you find. There's a point where bone just didn't exist yet. Life was soft, squishy, microscopic. It didn't leave much behind except chemical traces. And some creatures like jellyfish almost never fossilize. Jellyfish are basically professional memory erasers. Still, sometimes they leave a faint impression, like someone dozed off on a photocopier. We've found jellyfish fossils from 500 million years ago, and they still look confused. You shift again in your rock bed. A trilobite scuttles across your dream, unaware it's extinct. You wonder how many creatures slept like you and were never found, never named. Because here's a slightly heartbreaking fact: we've only discovered a fraction of what once lived. Scientists estimate that over 99% of all species that ever existed are now extinct. Let that number roll around your skull for a second. You'll never meet them, not even in dreams. But for the lucky few whose bones caught the right mud at the right time. Their stories drift up from the layers like warm air from a vent. It's quiet in the strata. Peaceful. The kind of silence that only exists when you're surrounded by the weight of deep time. The Earth forgets quickly on the surface. Volcanoes erase forests in minutes. Floods wipe away cities. People misplace their keys, but below it remembers everything. The stratigraphic column is a bedtime story told in reverse. You start with the familiar humans, mammals, warm-blooded things, and slowly drift down into the weird, the reptilian, the fishy, the microbial, the not even alive yet. You wonder what it feels like to be remembered by a rock. Is it a comfort or a trick? because fossils don't remember your name. They remember your shape, your pose, maybe what you ate, maybe who bit you last. It's like being remembered by your shadow. You turn your head in this dream, and you see something strange. A fossilized fern, perfectly preserved, every vein, every frill, every spore case. It's so precise it looks fake. And beside it, a broken bone. Just the end of a femur, jagged, crushed. You realize that fossils lie too, not intentionally, but by omission. They're incomplete, like a lullaby missing half its notes. Scientists still argue about how to interpret them. Is that posture defensive or relaxed? Is this footprint a run or a stagger? Was that tail for balance or flirting? There are entire conferences built around disagreements that hinge on the angle of a fossilized toe. And somehow that's comforting, because interpretation is its own kind of dreaming. You roll over and face the surface layers above. You can't see the sky, but you feel its pull, the weight of it, the warmth. You're still, just like the bones, just like the fern. But unlike them, you'll wake up, eventually. So for now, stay buried. Let time hold you. You're in good layers. Something soft brushes against your cheek. At first you think it's wind, but no. You're still deep inside the dream, still lying between prehistoric layers of Earth's memory. What touches you isn't air. It's a feather, yes, a feather. A single one, delicate and dark, drifting down from some unseen sky. You reach out to catch it, and when your fingers close, the entire dream shifts. Suddenly, you're not in the mud anymore. You're under the open light of an ancient sun, walking through a scrubby forest, crunching old ferns underfoot. In the distance, a flock of something fast darts between the trees, long tails, narrow arms, clicking claws, and feathers. Everywhere. They flutter behind hips, sprout from forearms, ripple along spines like banners. You're walking among theropods, and they're fluffier than expected. Here's your bedtime surprise: a lot of dinosaurs had feathers, and some of them didn't even fly. Some just wore them like jackets. Maybe to stay warm, maybe to look hot, maybe both. Paleontologists still argue about it. You crouch low as one of the creatures scampers past you. It's about turkey-sized with an arrogant little strut and feathers puffed like it's late for a runway show. It blinks at you. You blink back. That's Microraptor, and it probably couldn't soar like a hawk, but it could glide like a champion. 4 wings, 1 on each limb. A flying dinosaur that looked like a medieval kite stitched together by a drunk wizard. And yes, it had shiny, iridescent black feathers. Like a crow's tuxedo. Now here's the thing, we didn't always know this. For most of the 20th century, dinosaurs were painted as scaly, drab, lumbering lizards. Cold-blooded, clumsy. Pretty much crocodiles with better PR. But in the 1990s, everything got feathery. That's when researchers started discovering exquisite fossils in Liaoning China specimens, so well preserved that even the patterns of feathers could be seen. Not impressions. The actual fossilized filaments. Feathers so delicate they would have dissolved in hours today. Yet here they were, trapped in stone, whispering, "You've been picturing us all wrong." And scientists flipped. Some cried bird. Others cried fake. Many just stared for a long time, silently reevaluating every plastic dino toy in their childhood. Because if dinosaurs had feathers, then birds didn't evolve from them. Birds are dinosaurs. Still are. Go outside. Look at a pigeon. Now squint hard and add teeth claws and a little scream. There you go. But wait, you say, weren't dinosaurs cold-blooded? Didn't they bask in the sun like lazy lizards? Scientists still debate this. Some argue many species, especially small theropods, were actually warm-blooded. Others say it was a weird middle ground. Maybe their blood adapted to the environment. Maybe it just depended on the dino. It's one of those arguments that quietly keeps paleontologists awake at night. Like, was T-Rex a sprinter or just an angry goose? You reach out toward another feather drifting past you. It disintegrates before it touches your palm. Feathers are fragile, and so is history. Here's your weird fact of the night: dinosaurs didn't invent feathers for flight. Flight came after. Feathers likely evolved first for insulation. Think primitive thermal pajamas. Later, they became colorful, useful for display intimidation, or maybe just impressing the opposite sex. Only then, eventually, did evolution go, hey, maybe you could jump with those. And thus began one of the strangest side gigs in natural history: feathered dinosaurs accidentally inventing birds. You lean back against a tree watching two fuzzy creatures hiss and chase each other. Their arms flap, not with purpose, but instinct. Somewhere in that flailing is the blueprint for everything from sparrows to eagles to that one goose that bit your cousin last summer. Not every dinosaur had feathers, but once they appeared, they spread, like fashion or a rumor. Even T-Rex hatchlings may have been fluffy. We don't know for sure. Some scientists suggest juveniles had downy fuzz for warmth, while adults grew into their scaly skin like teenagers ditching their winter coats. So imagine this: a baby T-Rex no bigger than a cat covered in fine plumage chirping quietly while stomping around the nest looking for snacks. If that doesn't make you want to hug deep time, I don't know what will. You walk slowly now, dream drowsy between tall cycads and ginkgos. A distant shriek cuts the air, maybe predator, maybe parent. The forest rustles. Wings flutter. You feel the presence of something immense. Not in size, but in implication. Because this isn't just about dinosaurs anymore. It's about how wrong we were, how confident, how loud, and how a few tiny threads of keratin changed everything. The feathers tell a deeper story. Evolution isn't a ladder. It's a tangle, a web, a messy, accidental sleepwalk through endless forms, most of them very confused looking. You turn your face up toward the canopy. A gliding dinosaur skims overhead, catching the light on its dark feathers like a shadow dipped in oil. And for a second, you can't tell where dream ends and memory begins. Are you remembering something? Are you being remembered? The lines blur in the twilight. Feathers drift. The forest sighs. And you exhale into the silence softer now. Because even in deep time, some creatures never stopped dreaming. The air smells weird, like pickles, but also gravel. You squint. You're in another part of the dream now, still in deep time, still drifting. But the light's changed. More golden, lower in the sky, and there's a weird hissing sound coming from nearby. You turn your head and see it. A dinosaur stomach. Not just any stomach either, it's open, fossilized, like someone pressed pause mid-chomp. Inside are little stones, round, smooth, dozens of them right where salad should be. This, my sleepy friend, is a gastrolith, a stomach stone. Because some dinosaurs didn't just eat rocks for fun, they needed them. You shuffle closer, half curious, half bleary-eyed. Let's talk digestion. Dinosaurs didn't have blenders, they didn't have molars. Most herbivorous dinos, especially the sauropods and hadrosaurs, had to gulp down tough plant material. Cycads, ginkgos, conifers, ferns, and whatever else was on the prehistoric salad bar. Some developed battery-like grinding teeth constantly replaced like conveyor belts. Others took a different route. They swallowed stones. just like modern birds. These gastroliths sat in the gizzard, a muscular part of the stomach, and helped grind food by literally smashing it around like prehistoric smoothie makers. You rub your temple. Imagine eating rocks to survive. Not metaphorically, actually. Still, you can't help but admire it. Evolution's clever. It doesn't wait for you to invent chewing. It just hands you a handful of gravel and says, good luck. But digestion's just the beginning. Dinosaurs, like all animals, were giant walking factories, eating, breaking down, converting, releasing. Every bite of fern had to become energy, muscle, bone, heat. Every bowel movement left clues, sometimes fossilized ones, like we mentioned before. Still thinking about coprolites? It's okay, everyone does eventually. But inside the gut, there were wild things happening. Some paleontologists believe certain dinos had fermentation chambers, like cows' multi-stage digestive tracts that relied on gut bacteria to break down cellulose-rich plants. Think warm, bubbling vats of prehistoric sauerkraut. Others were not sure. Because, well, soft organs rarely fossilize, so scientists still debate how efficient dinosaur digestion really was. Did they extract a lot of nutrients? Did they pass food quickly like birds? Did their giant sizes allow them to be low-energy processors moving slow but steady through enormous quantities of leaves? No one knows for sure. You lean against a tree, dizzy from all this imagined metabolism. In the distance, you hear a low grunt. A hadrosaur, duck-billed and moody, is chewing with sideways jaw motions, making a sound like someone rubbing a sponge on a balloon. Its teeth are arranged in rows and stacks, like a dental skyscraper. And guess what? It replaces them constantly. Some species had over 1,000 teeth in their lifetime. You pause to let that settle in. 1,000 teeth. That's nightmare fuel, and also kind of impressive. But digestion isn't just about food. It tells us about behavior. If we know what dinosaurs ate, we can guess where they went, how they socialized, even how they slept. Herding behavior, migration routes, nesting sites, all tied to the question, what's for dinner? You kneel beside a fossilized coprolite and wonder what if it belongs to the hadrosaur you just saw. That's the weirdest intimacy imaginable. You didn't know them. They didn't know you. And yet here you are learning about their fiber intake 75 million years later. Speaking of weird, want a strange fossil fact. In 2019, researchers discovered what they believed to be a fossilized cloaca on a Psittacosaurus. Yep. Dino butt. It's not just funny, it's science. The cloaca is a shared opening for pooping, peeing, and mating. Birds have them, reptiles have them, and apparently dinosaurs too. Why does this matter? Because it gives scientists a glimpse into how reproduction might have worked, how mating displays evolved, whether those colorful tail feathers were just for show or had something more persuasive in mind. You rub your eyes. It's getting dim again. A low mist curls around your ankles as the forest begins to quiet. You realize something odd. Even though the dinosaur world was loud, sharp, and full of teeth, it was also rhythmic. Digestive cycles, migration loops, nesting seasons, constant ancient habits humming in the background. The sleep cycles of dinosaurs. We don't know them, but we can guess. Reptiles and birds both experience something like sleep. Crocodiles can sleep with one eye open. Birds can nap mid-flight. So did dinosaurs dream? Did they curl up in groups? Tuck heads beneath feathered arms? Did they twitch in their sleep, like dogs chasing ancient prey? A fossil found in China shows a small theropod curled in a sleeping pose, legs tucked under tail wrapped around. Like a bird. Like your cat. It's called Mei Long, which literally means sleeping dragon. And yes, that's real. You smile. You imagine the whole forest dozing, digesting, breathing, twitching, dreaming, feathers rustling, guts churning, hearts slowing, a world not of roars, but of snores. And somehow, in this drowsy dream, it all makes sense, because to sleep is to digest the day. Even for a dinosaur, it's small, smaller than you expected. Barely the size of a chicken bone, this fossil you're holding in your dream palms is delicate, curved, and razor sharp. It fits between your fingers like it was made to be found. You tilt it toward the ancient sun. It glints like obsidian. A claw raptor, probably. You glance down and realize you're surrounded by little bones. Not piles of monstrous skeletons, not the long and lumbering kind. These are compact, lightweight, hidden beneath the ferns and moss like nature dropped a box of mismatched Lego pieces and never cleaned up. And yet, from these tiny things, entire worlds are rebuilt. Because here's the truth that sometimes surprises even seasoned fossil fans: some of the most important dinosaur discoveries have been tiny. Tooth fragments, wrist bones, the curve of a toe. You think fossils are these giant, dramatic skeletons in museums, but paleontology, it's mostly about crumbs. Teeth the size of lentils, vertebrae you could lose in your sock. And those small bones, they can change everything. You brush aside some dirt and uncover a tiny skull. Short snout, big eye sockets. You can almost hear the squeak of ancient cuteness. Probably a baby of something terrifying. That's one of the weirdest truths about paleontology: small doesn't mean simple. In fact, the smaller the creature, the more questions it raises. You trace your fingers along the fossil's edge, careful not to break it, even though in this dream it can't actually break. Just feels like it could. This one belonged to a Compsognathus, maybe, or Anchiornis, or one of the many unnamed species that flitted through the underbrush unnoticed by the giants above them. They're the unsung background actors of the Mesozoic movie. And ironically, they're the ones telling us the most. Scientists still debate just how many small dinosaurs existed. The fossil record is biased toward big bones, hard bones, dense bones. The little guys, they rot, they scatter, they get trampled. Imagine trying to reconstruct an entire animal from a piece of pinky toe. That's the job. That's the magic. You look up. A velociraptor trots by, elegant and low to the ground, barely taller than your knee. Feathers fluttering, tail stiff. The kind of predator that could sneak under a log and ruin your day in 3 quick hops. Not as big as the movies made you think, huh? And that's a recurring theme. Small fossils have been correcting Hollywood's homework for decades. Like when scientists found Mahakala, a tiny feathered dino that showed bird-like traits evolved before flight. Or the discovery of Scansoriopteryx, which looked like a squirrel, a bird, and a lizard, had a messy breakup and left the baby with too many limbs. You lean closer to another fossil, this one's a toe, but the curvature suggests climbing, tree-dwelling behavior, like early bird ancestors. Or maybe dinosaurs that leapt from branch to branch, like awkward, angry lemurs. And here's your weird fact of the night: one of the best preserved fossils ever found was not from a giant predator, but from a small, chicken-sized dino. They call it the dinosaur mummy. It's a nodosaur, but because it got buried in a seafloor mudslide, its skin impressions, stomach contents, and even armor pigmentation were preserved. It looks like it fell asleep in the mud and just never woke up. The little guys give us those moments. Those "I can't believe this survived" gasps. The fossils where you can see the texture of feathers or the curve of a nostril or the outline of eyelids. But they also mess with us. Because when you find a small fossil, your first instinct is to say baby. But that's not always true. Some dinosaurs were just small. Fully grown tax-paying adults, just short. And mislabeling a grown animal as a juvenile. that leads to way too many species names and messy debates about who's who in the dinosaur family tree. So scientists tread carefully now. They measure bone density. Look at fusion points in the skeleton. Analyze growth rings, kind of like tree rings, to estimate age. It's detective work with very sleepy tools. And they're still sorting it out. You stretch out next to the tiny skull again, laying your cheek on the ground. Your breath stirs the fossilized leaves beside it. You think about how this little creature once ran through undergrowth, maybe chased bugs, maybe chased dreams. And now here you are, separated by 100 million years, meeting it in a dream. Here's the irony: the smallest bones often carry the biggest weight. They challenge assumptions. They reshape theories. They whisper that evolution doesn't play fair. Sometimes it makes giants. Sometimes it perfects a chicken. And somewhere between those two, us. Because if you zoom way out, if you blur your eyes enough, a human is just a nervous, hairless dinosaur with taxes. You lie still. The little bones around you seem to vibrate like strings on an ancient instrument. You don't know the song, but you feel it in your ribs. It's light. It's fast. And it keeps moving long after the body stops. The wind shifts. Leaves curl. A tiny fossilized wing stirs beside you. And the world goes quiet again. You're walking again. Sort of. More like wandering barefoot and sleepy through a vast stone gallery. The light is soft and gray, the air still like a museum that's been asleep for a few thousand years. Except something's wrong. That dinosaur skull in the corner, too perfect. That trilobite in the glass, suspiciously shiny. And that so-called pterosaur egg, it's made of concrete. You blink. You've stumbled into the weirdest wing of paleontology fossil fakes. Yes, fossil forgeries are real. And no, they're not just bad props or mistakes by overly enthusiastic hobbyists. Some are so convincing that they've fooled entire institutions. You crouch beside a stone slab and squint at the bones embedded in it. Everything looks just a little off. The ribs are too symmetrical. The posture too dramatic. You lift your hand to brush some imaginary dust away, and the whole thing wobbles. This one's a composite. It happens more than you'd think. Collectors, especially during fossil booms in the 19th and early 20th centuries, sometimes combined parts from different animals or even different species to create more impressive-looking specimens. Tails from one, heads from another, limbs borrowed from a third. Like Frankenstein, but prehistoric. And sometimes it's not even malicious. Some fossil fakes are just enthusiastic reconstructions that turned out to be, well, wrong. Take Archaeoraptor, for example. In the late 1990s, National Geographic announced a new fossil from China, a stunning missing link between dinosaurs and birds. Feathered, elegant, groundbreaking. Too bad it was a fake. A farmer had glued together parts of a bird and a small theropod, and for a while the world believed it. When the truth came out, it was embarrassing, but also instructive. Because the whole mess reminded the scientific community extraordinary claims require extraordinary verification. Scientists still debate how many specimens in private collections might be partial fakes or complete fiction. Without access to them, it's hard to test or analyze. Some may be legitimate. Others, who knows? You walk further down the corridor and see another slab. This one's labeled Piltdown Chicken. It's a joke, obviously, but you get the reference. Piltdown Man was a famous paleoanthropological hoax from the early 1900s. A missing link between apes and humans. Skull fragments, jawbone tools. Except the jaw was from an orangutan, and the teeth were filed down to look more human. It fooled people for decades, And even in dino science, ambition sometimes outpaces truth. But not all fossil fakes are deliberate. Some are errors born from passion. An overzealous dig, a mistaken identification, a misread layer of rock, a fragment assumed to belong to one species later revealed to be from another or worse, from a tree. Yes, sometimes plant roots fossilize in ways that look like bones, and sometimes bones fossilize in ways that look like rocks. Nature is confusing when you're not fully awake. You pause at a slab that looks authentic. A small theropod mid-run frozen in a perfect pose. It's labeled real, you lean in. A tiny placard reads, "This is not a real fossil, but it's a real replica, made using casts from actual bones." This way, museums around the world can share discoveries without endangering originals. You exhale. Because there's comfort in knowing not every fake is a fraud. Some are honest duplicates, teaching tools, placeholders for something rare, delicate, or priceless. Museums can't always display the original. Fossils can be too fragile, too radioactive, too legally entangled. Yes, that's right. Fossils can be caught in legal battles, ownership disputes, land rights, international smuggling rings. That claw you saw on eBay might be a piece of Mongolia's national heritage. The fossil trade is a big, shadowy business. Some collectors pay millions for rare specimens, which sometimes vanish into private vaults never to be studied. And here's the bedtime brain knot: some of our best specimens come from the black market. Illegally excavated, smuggled across borders, cleaned and polished by people with no paleontology training. And yet they're real, scientifically important. So what do? You can't undiscover a discovery just because it came through the wrong door. You sigh. The gallery walls fade slightly, replaced by the blurred silhouettes of people arguing softly in the background. Scientists, curators, collectors, journalists. You can't hear their words, just the tone, tired, frustrated, passionate. And somewhere beneath all that, hopeful. Because even when the story is messy, even when the bones lie or the truth bends or the motives get murky, the desire is always the same. To know what came before. To understand how we got here. You reach out and touch the edge of one of the fake fossils. It's cool, smooth, still. And even if it's not real, it still tells a story. You think about your own memories. Not all of them are accurate. Some are warped, rearranged. Some are borrowed from dreams. But they still feel true. Fossils are the same. They don't owe us certainty. They just offer fragments. It's up to us to build the rest. You walk slowly now, the gallery dissolving into the night. Outside, the stars are just beginning to pierce the twilight sky. Each one a fossil in its own way, light from a past that may not even exist anymore. You yawn. Let the fakes drift away. Let the real ones rest. They've done their job. And so have you. It's quiet. Almost too quiet. You're lying in a wide, dusty clearing surrounded by low hills. The stars above are thick and unfamiliar. The moon, if it even is a moon, looks closer than usual, like it's leaning in to listen. And beneath your back, a circle of stones. Small, deliberate, perfectly spaced. You sit up, slowly brushing ancient pine needles from your arms, and realize where you are. A dinosaur nesting site. And not just any nest, this one is filled with eggs. Dozens of them arranged in a ring. Some cracked, some whole. Some with the faintest suggestion of what used to be inside curled skeletons, the size of rabbits' arms tucked in beaks, gently open like they fell asleep before they ever woke up. You blink and whisper, "Whoa," because that's the only reasonable thing to say. when you realize you're sitting inside a 75-million-year-old nursery. Tonight, we're peeking into a softer part of the dinosaur story parenting. And yes, they did it. Or at least many of them did. Once upon a time, scientists thought dinosaurs were cold-blooded loners who laid their eggs and left them like bad dates. But then the fossils started to speak. Enter Maiasaura. Her name literally means good mother lizard. Because in Montana, paleontologists found evidence of adult hadrosaurs returning to the same nesting grounds over and over again, places filled with baby fossils in various stages of growth. Some bones were still soft. Some had partially worn teeth. Others were nearly ready to walk. Which means those babies weren't being abandoned, they were being raised. You glance around the nest. You imagine a group of Maiasaura huddled here watching over their young. Maybe even feeding them bird-style. Maybe gently prodding them awake with their beaks. Maybe keeping them warm with that big, heavy hadrosaur belly. Feathers not required. Just presence. And then there's Oviraptor. For decades, this poor dino was painted as a thief. Why? Because its skeleton was found near a clutch of eggs, clearly stealing them right wrong. Turns out Oviraptor wasn't the villain. It was the parent. Fossils later revealed adult oviraptors crouched protectively over their nests, arms spread wide like wings, just like brooding birds. They weren't stealing eggs, they were keeping them warm. Scientists still debate how common parental care was among dinosaurs. Did it evolve in a few species, or was it widespread? Did larger predators like T-Rex guard their nests too? Or just lay and leave? The fossil record whispers, hints, but rarely shouts. Some eggs show signs of embryo movement, like the babies were repositioning themselves inside, getting ready to hatch. Others have marks suggesting adults turned them periodically like birds do today. You reach into the nest and gently touch one of the shells. It's stone now, but the curve is still there. The fragility, the potential. And here's your weird fact of the night: dinosaur eggs came in all sorts of shapes. Some were round like meatballs. Others were long and pointed. Some even had soft, leathery shells like modern reptiles, while others had hard, calcified exteriors. And the size, don't let Hollywood fool you. Even T-Rex eggs weren't giant ostrich-sized monsters. Most were surprisingly modest. Big dino, big egg. It's not about the packaging, it's about the survival strategy. Some species laid clutches of 20, 30, even 50 eggs at a time. Not because they were overachievers, but because most of the babies wouldn't make it. Predators, disease, bad weather, nature's tough. And the best strategy sometimes is outnumber the odds. You lie back in the nest again, the sky above spinning slowly. What do you dream about when you're still inside an egg? Do you dream of ferns, of siblings, of the sound of a parent's rumble through the soil, or is it just darkness and the slow rhythm of a prehistoric heartbeat? The fossils won't tell you that, but they'll give you shadows. Shadows like fossilized footprints of babies around nests. Multiple sizes, multiple ages, families. Shadows like tooth marks in shells, evidence of hatching, or sometimes hunger. Even the broken bits matter. They show how long the babies stayed, if they walked on their own or needed help, if the nest was peaceful or the site of a prehistoric disaster. And yes, there are fossilized nests that suggest mass death events, entire clutches frozen in time by floods, ash falls, or sudden sandstorms. It's sad, but also breathtaking. Because for those babies to be fossilized at all, everything had to happen exactly wrong and exactly right. Quick burial, gentle pressure, no scavengers, and then millions of years of silence. Until someone one day brushed dust from stone, saw the arc of a tiny jawbone, and whispered, they were trying to live. You stretch your arms in the imaginary nest, and feel the curve of deep time wrap around you like a blanket. And somewhere in the distance, a dinosaur calls. Not a roar, more like a low coo. A sound only parents make late at night when the world is dark and full of stars. You smile. Even monsters sang lullabies. You're not in a nest anymore. You're somewhere older, wilder. The air smells of wet stone and sulfur, and the trees are thinner now, primitive, stunted things with waxy leaves and a nervous way of standing. The ground is red with iron. The sky is weirdly green, and everything feels off. Welcome to the Triassic. This is the first act, the opening scene, the moment the curtain lifts on the age of dinosaurs, and it's not what you expected. Because right now, they're not in charge. Not yet. You step carefully between scraggly ferns. The landscape hums with tension, like a concert about to begin. But so far, it's the wrong cast on stage. There are reptiles sure everywhere. Crocodile-like beasts with legs sticking out sideways. Snake-like creatures slithering through shallow pools. Some sprint on two legs like oversized lizards. Others lumber on all fours like failed furniture. And the weirdest ones, they're proto-dinosaurs. Not quite there yet, but close. You crouch beside a Neosaurus, or at least a shadow of one. It's small, dog-sized, walking upright, with long hind limbs and a long tail for balance. This could be the oldest known dinosaur, or it could be just a very close cousin. Scientists still debate the exact moment dinosaurs officially arrived. Some say it's around 233 million years ago during the Carnian pluvial episode, basically a fancy name for that weird wet blip in the middle of the Triassic when it wouldn't stop raining. And it's in that murky, flooded world that dinosaurs quietly step onto the evolutionary stage. They don't roar, they don't dominate, they just start existing. At first they're small, light, fast, think nervous chicken energy. They survive because they're adaptable. They can stand upright. They can breathe efficiently. They can run without tripping over their own feet. You walk through a marshy clearing where little herds of Chelophysis dart between tree trunks. They're early theropods, slender, long-necked, hollow-boned. Their eyes flick toward you suspicious. They smell opportunity or fear. You stand still, and one hisses softly. These aren't cuddly dinosaurs. These are survivors, born in chaos, built for change. And that's the secret to why dinosaurs made it big. Because the Triassic, it's a mess. Tectonic plates are shifting like toddlers rearranging puzzle pieces. Volcanoes are blowing off steam like it's a full-time job. The climate flips between sauna and freezer. Life is experimental, desperate, weird. And then the tipping point, a mass extinction. Around 2.1 million years ago, the End Triassic event wipes out a huge percentage of life on Earth. The cause, possibly volcanoes, possibly methane burps from the ocean, possibly a combo meal of doom, as one paleontologist once put it. Whatever it was, it clears the stage. And the dinosaurs, they're still standing. Suddenly their rivals like the crocodile-like pseudosuchians are gone. And the dinosaurs expand into the silence, like ivy creeping through a broken window. You walk through time now slowly as the Triassic fades into the Jurassic. Everything starts getting bigger, bolder, more familiar. But don't forget the early ones. They mattered. Even if they don't get movie roles. Even if their bones are rare and scattered. They were the weird kids in the back of the class who eventually took over the school. And here's your odd fact of the night. One of the earliest flying reptiles, Preondactylus, lived during this time. And its entire fossil record comes from one skull that was literally coughed up by a fish. Yes. A fish ate it, couldn't digest the bones, barfed it up, and that pile of ancient vomit fossilized. That's how we know it existed. You lie back against a warm Triassic rock and stare at the sky. There are no towering sauropods here yet, no tyrannosaurs, no ceratopsians or hadrosaurs. But there's movement, momentum, and the sense that something enormous is coming. You feel the earth shifting beneath you, not fast, not loud, but definitely changing. It's the beginning of a dynasty, and you're lucky enough to dream it from the start. Somewhere nearby, a small theropod chirps. It's a quiet sound, unremarkable. But history is full of quiet beginnings. And when you close your eyes, the Triassic hums like a distant drum roll. The forest has changed. You don't know how long you've been walking, minutes, millennia, but the leaves are bigger now, broader, more lush. Ferns taller than you sway in slow-motion breezes, and giant horsetails spiral skyward like green cathedral pillars. You take a breath. It's thick and damp like breathing through warm moss. Welcome to the Jurassic. It's a strange comfort, this place. Still ancient, still alien, but somehow softer. The air feels alive, buzzing faintly, with insects the size of your thumb. Sunlight filters through the trees in golden columns. You hear something croak far off. Everything is massive, and it all feels like it just rained. This is the golden age of dinosaurs, and you've arrived just in time for their weather report. Because tonight, you're not just here to gawk at long necks and spiky tails, we're talking about climate and how it shaped dinosaur dreams. Let's start with the basics. The Jurassic period, about 145 million years ago, was warm. Very warm. Like, should I wear my skin today or just sweat into extinction warm? There were no polar ice caps, sea levels were high. Vast, shallow seas flooded continents. Humidity was off the charts. Picture a world designed entirely by a tropical plant and a sauna technician. And dinosaurs thrived in it. You hear a low groan overhead. You tilt your head, and there it is, a diplodocus, long as a city bus. Neck stretched through the canopy like a brontosaurus-shaped crane. It's not roaring, it's munching, slowly, like it's got all the time in the world. Which honestly, it kind of does. These giants could only exist in this kind of climate. Warm temperatures meant abundant plant life. More plants meant more calories. More calories meant, you guessed it, more room for absurdly long necks and big bellies. But there's more. Warm temperatures also meant fewer seasonal shifts. In much of the world, there wasn't a cold winter followed by a spring bloom. It was just always growing, always green, always available. Which meant dinosaurs didn't have to hibernate, or migrate as far, or store fat like a squirrel prepping for apocalypse. They could just keep eating, keep moving, keep dreaming. You step through the underbrush and start to notice the bugs, huge dragonflies, chirping beetles, a centipede slinking past your foot that could pass for a small dachshund. These aren't your modern backyard critters. These are ancient invertebrates made bold by oxygen. Because during the Jurassic, atmospheric oxygen levels were higher than today. Some estimates say up to 30% compared to today's 21%. And that changes everything. It means animals could grow bigger without suffocating under their own bulk. It also means fires were more common. A single lightning strike could set half a forest ablaze. You glance up nervously. Thunder grumbles in the distance. And speaking of thunderstorms during this era were monstrous. Warm oceans, constant evaporation, high humidity, towering storm clouds. Lightning storms that lasted for hours. Prehistoric hurricanes that could sweep across entire proto-continents. You duck beneath a broad fern as the sky darkens just slightly in your dreamscape. You feel the air tense. Even the diplodocus looks up. And it makes you wonder, how did dinosaurs deal with weather we don't fully know? Fossils can't show umbrellas or raincoats. But some theories suggest large sauropods may have used their bulk to regulate temperature like walking thermostats. Others had built-in cooling systems. Stegosaurus, for example, may have used its backplates as radiators, blood vessels running through them, dissipating heat like a dinosaur AC unit. Scientists still debate whether these features were more for thermoregulation defense or showing off. The answer might be yes to all. You wipe imaginary sweat from your brow. The sky lightens again, and with it, the chirping resumes. Life undeterred. Because that's the thing about dinosaurs, they weren't just resilient. They were in sync with their world. When it rained, they trudged through it. When it flooded, they swam. When it got too hot, they found shade. Their bones were not just tough, they were adaptable. And yet, not invincible. The climate was changing even then. Volcanic activity increased toward the end of the Jurassic. CO2 levels rose. Oceans warmed. Some plant species began to decline, others took their place. Whole ecosystems shifted, and dinosaurs shifted with them. But not always fast enough. That's the haunting rhythm of Earth's history: adapt or vanish. You find a wide, shallow pond and sit at the edge. Something sloshes beneath the surface, maybe a fish, maybe a crocodilian, maybe a dream. The pond reflects your face and the trees above. For a moment, the reflection flickers, and you see not yourself, but a Camarasaurus bending to drink. Its breath fogs the surface, and then it's gone. The forest stills. The water goes flat. You lie back in the moss, the sky turning honey orange above you. You think about time not as something linear but seasonal. Moments returning again and again. Not the same but familiar. Like the way we all fall asleep. And someday just maybe wake up somewhere new. You're lying on your back staring straight up. Above you the sky is broken only by a shadow, long, slow-moving, impossibly graceful. It moves like a whisper, like a dream that refuses to rush. You sit up and follow its path. And there it is, a sauropod, massive, towering. Moving in slow, deliberate motion, like time itself decided to go for a walk. Its neck stretches into the canopy higher than any modern giraffe could ever dream. Its legs are pillars. Its tail sways like a metronome. Its footsteps are soft, almost respectful, leaving shallow craters in the mossy earth. You take one deep breath and exhale a single syllable, whoa. Because this is the kind of dinosaur you've seen in every childhood book. The long-necked, plant-eating, sky-reaching, gentle beast of bedtime stories. But tonight, you're here to ask a weird question. How did this thing even function? Because seriously, how do you sleep when your neck is 30 feet long? Let's start with the basics. Sauropods like Diplodocus brachiosaurus and Argentinosaurus are among the largest animals to ever walk the earth. Some stretched over 100 feet from snout to tail. Others weighed more than 12 elephants stacked on top of each other, hopefully not all at once. And yet they walked, ate, breathed, slept. Probably. Scientists still debate exactly how. You walk alongside this one now, careful to stay near its tree trunk legs. You feel the breeze as its tail whips slowly past, like someone gently dragging a telephone pole. Let's talk breathing first. Sauropods had long necks, ridiculously long. So how did they get air all the way down that biological vacuum hose? Turns out they had a cheat code. Air sacs. Like birds today, sauropods had a highly efficient respiratory system. Air sacs spread throughout their body, including their neck bones. This system allowed them to breathe with a sort of unidirectional flow. Air moved through like a breeze, not a bellows. Their bones were pneumatic, full of air spaces, making them lighter than they looked. That's right. Some of those massive neck vertebrae were basically dino pool floaties. You stop at one fossilized bone the size of a coffee table. It's hollow, like a balloon made of rock. Efficient, elegant, evolutionary poetry. But what about sleeping? How do you lie down when you're the size of a train? We don't really know. Some scientists think sauropods may have slept standing up like elephants sometimes do. Others suggest they could kneel or collapse onto thick bedding swamps, sandbanks, or mossy ground to cushion their massive bulk. There are no fossilized sauropods in sleeping poses, no dino memory foam preserved in stone. But you imagine it anyway. This massive creature slowly folding its legs, curling slightly, neck curving like a sleeping question mark, tail coiled behind like a snake taking a nap, a breathing mountain, a slumbering continent. Odd fact of the night, sauropods may have had tiny brains. Some species had brains barely larger than a tennis ball, smaller in some cases than their eyeballs. So how did they survive? Well, brains aren't everything. Their massive bodies were like cruise ships, steady, hard to sink, and basically impossible to sneak up on. Plus, there's a theory still debated, of course, that sauropods had a second brain near their hips, a neural bundle that may have helped coordinate their rear legs and tail. Not a thinking brain, but a processing center. Like a spinal Wi-Fi booster. You laugh quietly at the thought. A dinosaur with a backup brain. Just in case. You reach out and touch the tree bark beside you, watching your sauropod companion nibble from the treetops. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It just exists. And that somehow is its genius. Sauropods weren't built for drama. They didn't run, didn't fight much, didn't have horns, claws, or fancy frills. They were giant biological factories for turning leaves into motion, eating constantly, processing constantly, moving endlessly. And maybe that's what made them kings. In a world full of teeth and terror, they simply outlasted. Some sauropods lived for decades, maybe over a century. Slow metabolisms, long growth periods, steady rhythms, like trees that could walk. You lie back again and close your eyes. You feel the vibration of its footsteps fade into the distance. Not thunder, not violence. Just the heavy exhale of something impossibly big, going to bed. And in that silence you realize not all dinosaurs were hunters. Some were just wanderers, sleepwalkers of deep time. You wake to laughter. Not human laughter, something sharper. Lighter, like a bird and a hyena had a very weird baby. You sit up slowly. There's a glow in the distance, like firelight flickering off leaves. Shadows dance behind it. Shapes move, odd shapes. Not the soft curves of sauropods or the sleek menace of theropods. These are dinosaurs with personality, posture, panache. You're at a campfire, but the fire isn't real. It's just your brain stitching together the warmth of curiosity with the ridiculous lineup in front of you. Welcome to the Cretaceous Cafe of Oddballs. This is the part of the dream where evolution got weird and didn't apologize. Let's start with that thing over there, Therizinosaurus. It's over 30 feet long. Feathers like a mop, pot belly, beak, and most importantly, giant claws, each the length of a sword. They look like they belong on Freddy Krueger's gardening cousin. You wave at it. It blinks slowly, like it didn't expect to be in this story either. Here's the weird part, we don't even think it was a predator. Those scythe claws probably used to pull down branches, or maybe display. Or maybe it was just a phase, Scientists still debate what Therizinosaurus actually ate. Plants, insects. Dreams beside it is Ankylosaurus, the prehistoric tank. This one doesn't move much, just breathes quietly. Covered in bony armor plates and wielding a tail club the size of a wrecking ball, it's basically the dinosaur version of "I'm not here to fight, but if you start something, I will finish it." Its head swivels slightly as you pass. Eyes small, intelligent, calm. And just behind it, lumbering in with a soft honk, Parasaurolophus. Yes, the one with the giant backward head tube. That crest, possibly a built-in sound system. Its hollow structure might have allowed it to produce long, low-frequency calls, like a foghorn echoing through a fern forest. Imagine that as your morning alarm. We've actually tried to recreate what it sounded like using 3D scans and CT imaging. The result? Haunting. Hollow. A prehistoric didgeridoo crooning into the void. You sip your imaginary coffee and nod respectfully. Everywhere you look now, there's another evolutionary experiment walking around. Some dinosaurs had sails on their backs. Others had domes on their heads. Some had tails like fans. Others had beaks like parrots or noses like moose. And many of these creatures lived together, sharing the Cretaceous like roommates who never quite figured out whose food was in the fridge. The diversity wasn't just for show. It was survival. As flowering plants took over the landscape, new niches opened up. Grasses appeared. Insects exploded. The buffet got more interesting, and dinosaurs adapted to fit. You walk past a group of ceratopsians, horned dinosaurs resting near a log. There's Triceratops, obviously, but also its weirder cousins Styracosaurus, with its starburst of facial spikes, and Pacorinosaurus, whose name means thick-nosed lizard, which isn't flattering but accurate. Odd fact of the night. Some of these dinosaurs had more bone on their faces than in their brains. Frills, horns, bosses, you name it. Were they for defense? For temperature control? For flirting? Probably all three. And don't forget the hadrosaurs, the duck-billed ones. Some could chew better than modern cows. Whole dental batteries that ground tough plants like prehistoric food processors. It's like evolution handed them a mouth and said, "You're going to need this." You stop near a fallen log and sit. There's a stillness now, a sense of quiet after the parade of absurdity. You're starting to realize something. The Cretaceous wasn't just the last chapter of the dinosaurs. It was their greatest remix, a time when species branched into every shape possible. When feathers weren't just for flight, but display. When horns were as fashionable as they were functional. When being weird wasn't just allowed, it was rewarded. It was evolution turned up to 11. And yet, you feel a twinge of melancholy. Because this is the end of the age. They don't know it yet, but you do. You sit in the middle of their world, watching them eat nudge-chirp posture. All of them completely unaware that they're the last of their kind. In a few million years, a single asteroid is going to hit reset, and their cafe, their complexity, their charm gone. But not tonight. Tonight they live. You stand and stretch eyes, sweeping the clearing one last time. The oddballs keep eating, keep moving, keep being exactly what they were meant to be. And you carry their echo forward. Because weirdness survives, especially when someone remembers it. The wind shifts. You feel it before you hear anything, just a sudden change in the pressure of the dream. The warm buzz of the Cretaceous cafe fades. The chirps and rustling hush. Everything holds its breath. You stand in a clearing surrounded by flowers just beginning to bloom, bright, fragile things that evolved quietly while dinosaurs ruled the earth. Above, the sky seems too perfect, too still, and then boom, a tremor underfoot. Another, and another. Birds, yes, birds erupt from the trees, screeching. Animals scatter. You drop to your knees as the dream begins to rumble beneath you. This is it. The moment everyone knows is coming. The asteroid. 66 million years ago, in a place we now call the Yucatan Peninsula, a chunk of space rock about 6 miles wide slammed into Earth at 20 times the speed of sound. Everything that happens next is 1 part chaos, 1 part mystery, and 1 part heartbreak. The blast released more energy than 1 billion nuclear bombs. Mountains vaporized. Forests turned to fire. Oceans fled the coastline, then returned as tsunamis. You see it in the sky now, just a flash way off to the west. The light is wrong. Unholy. Like someone set off a camera flash in the face of the planet. And then the shockwave hits. In your dream, it knocks you flat. You curl into yourself. Everything is sound, heat, color, and then dust. More than you thought could possibly exist. Particles thrown into the atmosphere by the trillions blocking sunlight, shutting down photosynthesis, collapsing ecosystems not in days, not even hours, minutes. It's not just the dinosaurs. It's everything. Plankton, ferns, insects, mammals, birds, reptiles. The Earth doesn't burn so much as it chokes. Scientists still debate the exact timeline. Some believe most dinosaurs died within weeks of the impact. Others think it took months, years even. But the outcome is certain: an estimated 75% of all species vanished. And yet, if you're picturing a planet instantly silent and still, that's not how it works. You roll onto your side. The sky above is darkening ash, swirling, blotting out the stars. The temperature plummets. The flowers are gone. The buzzing has stopped. But not everything is dead. In the distance, you hear footsteps. Slow, staggered survivors. A wounded triceratops, perhaps, covered in soot, searching for plants that no longer grow. A T-Rex moving through the twilight like a ghost. Not roaring, just walking, looking, confused. These animals don't know what's happening. They don't know they're part of an extinction event. They're just trying to find breakfast. You stand. The ground beneath you is a layer of soot and bone. This is the KPG boundary, the geological line that marks the moment between dinosaurs lived here and they didn't anymore. It's not a metaphor. You can see it in cliffs, in canyons, in slices of ancient seabed. A paper-thin strip of clay rich in iridium, a rare metal more common in asteroids than on Earth. It's the fingerprint of the impact. And above it, no non-avian dinosaur fossils. None. You feel the grief of that silence like a pressure in your chest. It doesn't matter how many millions of years they ruled, how diverse, how adaptable, how beautiful. One rock, one moment, gone. Odd fact of the night: some of the last known dinosaur fossils come from the Hell Creek Formation in North America. And they're remarkably intact, suggesting they were alive almost up until the moment the sky turned against them. You crouch beside one, a leg bone maybe, still embedded in stone, still shaped like it could run, could stand, but it won't. Not ever again. You exhale. The air tastes of ash and memory. And for a long time, the earth is quiet. No footsteps, no feathers, no thunder lizards, just fungi. Fungi thrived in the post-impact world. When everything else collapsed, the decomposers rose. There's something poetic about that. When dreams die, it's the recyclers who tell the story. And from that darkness, from that nap of the world, something else will wake up. But not yet. You close your eyes again, curl into the still warm ground, and imagine what it must have felt like to be one of the last. Not knowing it's the end. Still waiting for the sun to rise. It's dark. Still. But not silent anymore. You stir in the ash-covered dreamscape and something is shifting. Not a dinosaur, not yet. Smaller, faster, softer. The world is waking up again, not with roars, but with chirps. Tiny claws scrabble over fallen logs. Feathers flutter in the cold. A creature hops across your vision no bigger than a dove. Sharp-eyed, curious, bright. You blink. It blinks back. And just like that, the age of dinosaurs continues. Because here's the twist, not all dinosaurs died in the asteroid impact. The ones that survived, they had wings. Welcome to the long, dark nap after the blast, the months, maybe years, when the world didn't really end. But it didn't live either. Imagine a nuclear winter, but with no people. No lights. No food. Just silence and soot. But in that gloom, something held on. Birds. Not all birds. Just a few hardy species. Likely small, ground-dwelling, beaked, able to eat seeds, some of the only calorie-rich food that survived. Seeds don't care about sunlight. They sit and wait. And somewhere out there, a creature small enough, adaptable enough, desperate enough, cracked one open and kept going. That creature was a dinosaur, a bird dinosaur. You sit up in your dream and realize you're surrounded, not by T-Rex or Triceratops, but by flitting shadows, wrens, thrushes, finches, all of them singing the same genetic tune that once echoed from feathered theropods 100 million years ago. Birds are not descendants of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs. Their hips, their lungs, their fused bones, their eggs, their parenting, every trait sings of their ancestry. You spot one perched above a hawk, maybe. It flares its wings, and for a brief second, it doesn't look like a bird at all. It looks like Deinonychus. You remember Microraptor Archaeopteryx and that sleeping dragon from earlier May long. This isn't a revival. It's a continuation. The dinosaurs didn't vanish. They shrunk. They adapted. They turned their claws into beaks, their teeth into precision tools, their arms into wings. They traded size for speed power, for finesse. And most importantly, they let go of the land and rose into the air. A planet wiped clean, and yet some still flew. Scientists still debate which birds made it through the extinction bottleneck. There's evidence some groups were already in decline before the asteroid. Others may have died off in the ecological chaos that followed. But a few survived, and from them all modern birds descend. Every flamingo, every penguin, every awkward goose at the park, tiny evolutionary echoes of the theropod dream. Here's your odd fact of the night. The chicken is genetically closer to T-Rex than a crocodile is. And yes, scientists have managed to study proteins from T-Rex fossils and compare them directly to modern bird tissues. Conclusion. It's not even close. That bird on your windowsill, she's got raptor blood. You walk through the gray light now past tree stumps, sprouting again, past the first flowers, reclaiming the soil. It's not lush. Not yet. But it's living. The mammals are here too, rat-like creatures, darting between roots, sniffing the air, waiting for their big moment. But they don't rule yet. Not while there are still beaks in the sky. You crouch beside a nest, not a Maiasaura nest this time, but a bird's. Small eggs, speckled, warm. Inside one, a heartbeat, still beating, still dreaming. The earth is different now. But life doesn't care. It adapts. It mutates. It keeps walking, flying, eating, pooping, laying, chirping. It keeps showing up. and so do the dinosaurs, just with fewer teeth. You hear a call overhead, high and piercing. You look up, and you smile. Because even after an apocalypse, some creatures keep singing. You're alone again, but not in the way you were at the start. Not in the ash-covered silence of extinction. Now you're standing in a bright museum hallway. Your dream has folded in on itself, and suddenly you're here surrounded by glass cases, soft lighting, and little plaques with italicized Latin names and questionable pronunciation guides. It's quiet, except for the whispers, not from people, from the fossils. You walk slowly, heel to toe, past a reconstructed skeleton frozen mid-pounce. A predator's jaw open in permanent surprise, its bones arranged with careful wires and subtle confidence. And then you see it, your favorite kind. Not the biggest, not the most dangerous, just expressive. A small dinosaur mouth open mid-screech, curled tail caught in an arc like a question mark. Its claws are lifted. Its eyes are hollow sockets, but they're looking at you, frozen in action. And this is where tonight's lesson gets weird. Because fossils, they don't just tell us what dinosaurs looked like. They whisper about what they did. You're staring at a death pose, head flung back, spine arched, limbs twisted. Scientists used to think it meant struggle, pain, agony. But now they think it might be post-mortem contraction, something that happens as muscles dry and ligaments shrink. Even in death, the body performs. Elsewhere, there's a fossilized fight, a velociraptor and protoceratops locked together mid-battle. Claws in the belly, beak in the arm, trapped in a sudden sandstorm and buried like actors caught mid-scene. You stare at it longer than you expected. There's something haunting about bones that still look like they're arguing. Here's your odd fact of the night. Paleontologists have found dinosaur footprints overlapping each other, layered like choreography. Multiple tracks side by side suggesting group movement, herding migration, maybe even play. Yes, play. Dinosaurs, like modern animals, may have chased each other for fun. Wrestled, danced, laughed in their own way. Not everything has to be survival. Some of it can just be joy. You turn a corner and find a fossilized turtle with bite marks in its shell. Nearby, a Troodon skeleton, sharp claws, huge eyes, possibly nocturnal, possibly too smart for its own good. Some scientists think Troodon had the highest brain-to-body ratio of any dinosaur. If evolution had gone differently, maybe Troodon would have ended up building cities, writing bedtime science scripts. But that's just speculation. You glance to the next case, a mass fossil bed, thousands of small dinosaurs fossilized together. Not from disease or drought, but from a flash flood. You can almost hear it, the roar of water, the sudden panic, the futile run toward higher ground, and then stillness. These aren't just fossils, they're moments, trapped, held, retold. Because the magic of fossilization isn't just that something survives, it's that it survives doing something. Walking, eating, sleeping, falling. The difference between a static skeleton and a fossil with context is the difference between a mannequin and a memory. And we love memories. We cling to them, even false ones, because sometimes scientists get it wrong. Fossils are misidentified, reassembled backward, named multiple times, or given personalities that aren't supported by science but feel right. Like T-Rex always roaring. It probably didn't, or Stegosaurus using its tail spikes like a sword. Maybe. Maybe not. Or Brontosaurus being erased, then brought back. Yes, it's real again. Science is a loop sometimes. Scientists still debate how much of what we know is real and how much is projection. You sit on a bench beside a mounted fossil of Coelophysis, one of the earliest dinosaurs. Tiny skull, lean limbs. You remember walking beside it earlier in your dream. Now it's glassed in and spotlighted, but in your mind it still runs. Because fossilized action scenes aren't just about the dinosaurs. They're about you. You, the person imagining motion from stillness. You, the one filling in the blank spaces between the bones. You, the storyteller. And suddenly, it hits you. Fossils don't make dinosaurs real. You do. With every question you ask. With every mental picture you paint. With every late-night thought about what it felt like to breathe thick Mesozoic air or hear a forest full of proto-bird song. These bones, they're mirrors. And you're dreaming with your eyes open. The museum fades behind you. Not all at once, just piece by piece. The lights dim. The glass disappears. The signs melt into mist. And then the floor vanishes, leaving you floating slowly downward, falling not fast, more like a feather. You land gently in a place made of noise. Not loud noise, just layered. Whispering facts, half-remembered quotes, the sound of ancient bones being named. You're surrounded by arguments, not fighting, just science doing what it always does, correcting itself out loud. You're at the edge of what paleontologists call the Bone Wars. It was the late 1800s. America was still pretending it was an idea. Railroads were crisscrossing the West, and the ground was giving up secrets faster than people could lie about them. And at the center of it all, two men. Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. Friends at first, then rivals, then cartoon-level enemies. What began as professional competition turned into a full-blown fossil feud that shaped and nearly wrecked early dinosaur science. You sit cross-legged on a ridge watching it all unfold. Marsh meticulous but vengeful. Cope passionate but impulsive. Both brilliant, both deeply flawed, and both absolutely obsessed with being first. First to find, first to name, first to publish. They sent teams of diggers into the Badlands, the Rockies, the Dakota Flats, anywhere the earth cracked open. They bribed. They stole. They sabotaged each other's digs. They dynamited fossil sites rather than let the other guy have the bones. You think that's an exaggeration? It's not. They literally blew up fossils on purpose. Scientists still debate how much of their work was accurate and how much was just ego-driven fiction in bone form. But they also discovered a lot. Between the two of them, they named over 130 new dinosaur species. Many turned out to be mistakes, duplicates, or misidentifications, but some stuck. Names like Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus. Yes, Apatosaurus. The dino that was mistakenly called Brontosaurus for nearly a century, because Cope and Marsh kept renaming each other's discoveries just to be petty. Odd fact of the night, Marsh once pointed out that Cope had reconstructed a plesiosaur fossil with the head on the wrong end. It was published in a journal. That mistake haunted Cope for the rest of his life. You exhale slowly, lying back on the dusty ridge. The stars overhead shimmer like fossil fragments, cold, bright, distant. You can hear Marsh grumbling somewhere to the left and Cope cursing softly to the right. You think about competition, about how much of science is shaped by who gets there first, even if they don't get it right. And yet, they built the foundation. Their rivalry attracted funding, public attention, scientific curiosity. Museums bloomed. Fossil displays exploded. A whole generation grew up dreaming of dinosaurs not because of quiet scholarship, but because of a grudge match. It's messy. but it's human. Science isn't a neat march forward. It's a drunk stumble through confusion and ego powered by sleep-deprived graduate students and occasional acts of grace. And fossils, they don't care. They sit in the dirt waiting, unchanged, patient, indifferent to names, careers, and petty wars. You sit up. The dream shifts again. You're in a classroom now, or a library, or maybe just your own memory. You remember learning about dinosaurs as a kid, drawing them, mispronouncing them, roaring like them. You remember arguing with someone about whether T-Rex could run or if Spinosaurus could swim. And now you realize you were part of the Bone Wars too. Still are. Every time someone makes a new documentary, every time a new species is discovered in Mongolia or Argentina or under a mall in New Jersey, every time two scientists disagree on whether a fossil is a juvenile or just a really chill adult, every time a little kid says, "Actually, that's not a velociraptor," it's still happening. Science as conversation, discovery as argument, progress as chaos. You smile. Because in the end, the Bone Wars weren't about bones. They were about belief, about wanting to be remembered. And that perhaps is the most dinosaur thing of all. The classroom fades, the dust settles, and now you're somewhere stranger. It smells like pine sap and rain. The air is thick, green, golden, buzzing. The world is smaller here, closer, softer, and sticky. You're standing in front of a tree, an ancient tree. Its bark glistens with a slow-moving ooze resin, thick and syrupy, dripping down in slow-motion globs that catch whatever touches them. A gnat, a beetle, a feather. You blink. This isn't just a tree. It's a time capsule. Welcome to the world of amber. And tonight you're going microscopic. Because while bones give us structure, amber gives us detail. It preserves life so exquisitely that sometimes even the color of a feather survives. Not a fossil, not a cast. The real thing trapped, sealed, protected for millions of years like a secret between tree and time. You lean in. There's something inside. A mosquito, maybe. With delicate wings, slender legs, and yes, a full belly. Is that blood? This is the part where you probably whisper, "Wait, Jurassic Park." And yes, we're going there. Because in 1993, that movie introduced the world to the idea of extracting dinosaur DNA from mosquitoes trapped in amber. It was brilliant. Fictional, but brilliant. So could we actually do it? Short answer, no. Long answer, scientists still debate the possibility. Amber preserves physical features beautifully, but DNA, not so much. It breaks down over time fast. Even under perfect conditions, it's unlikely to survive more than 1,000,000 years. And the dinosaurs died out 66 million years ago. So while we found amazing things in amber feathers, flowers, lizards, even a tick, it's not likely we'll find a mosquito with a readable dino genome in its belly. But we have found dinosaur feathers. In 2016, researchers discovered a feathered tail trapped in amber from Myanmar. Tiny, delicate, brown and white bands. Clear evidence of a non-avian dinosaur wearing feathers like a jacket. And not just the imprint. The actual structure. Soft tissue. Even pigment granules. You kneel next to the glowing hunk of amber in your dream, and you can almost see the tail twitching. Like it doesn't know it's trapped in time. Odd fact of the night. Some amber pieces even preserve movement bubbles, frozen mid-pop pollen, caught mid-float insects in mid-struggle. You're not looking at death. You're looking at a pause. A still frame. Amber is the Earth's way of pressing hold. And somehow that feels more intimate than bones. You press your hand against the tree and feel its heartbeat slow and syrupy. It reminds you that preservation doesn't always require death. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes time wraps around something and forgets to let go. You walk further into the forest. Amber droplets hang from branches like ornaments glowing in soft light. Inside them, a beetle mid-crawl, a spider frozen mid-web, a flower still open. This is the quietest kind of fossil. No drama, no violence, just life caught whispering. And yet it tells us so much. About behavior, about ecosystems, about what it felt like to be alive in the shadow of dinosaurs, while the little things bugs, spores, fluff went about their day. These are the overlooked players, the backup dancers of prehistory, and their preservation gives us texture. You pause in front of one last piece of amber. It's small, the size of a marble, inside a single eyelash of a feather. It could belong to a dinosaur. It could belong to a bird. Maybe both. And that's the point. The more we discover, the blurrier the lines get. The idea that there's a sharp divide between dinosaur and not dinosaur, it's fading. Birds didn't just appear. They grew from the inside of the dino family tree feather by feather, beat by beat. And here you are, in a golden forest holding a moment that might have fluttered through that change. You pocket the amber. Not really. Dreams don't have pockets. But go with it, because it's a reminder fossils don't always have to be dramatic. Sometimes they're quiet, sticky, ridiculously small, and powerful enough to make you feel like you were really there. You're barefoot again. But this time it's not prehistoric mud beneath your feet. It's tile, cold, pale, reflective. You're in a hallway now, the kind you've walked down 1,000 times. Only this one feels familiar in the wrong way. Because at the far end of it is a mirror, and you're walking toward it. Slowly. Because tonight's dream is asking the strangest question yet. What part of you is still dinosaur? Not in the poetic sense, not spiritually, biologically. You reach the mirror and look at your face, and then your hands, then your feet. There's no tail, no scales, no claws. Unless you forgot to trim your toenails, happens to the best of us. But still, there's something there. Let's start with the basics. Your pelvis dinosaur-shaped. Your upright stance shared with theropods. Your sleeping position curled in a fetal pose. They did that too. The truth is, when you strip away the distractions, clothing culture, Wi-Fi, you're built from very old parts. Because evolution doesn't reinvent. It recycles. It takes what works and bends it, reuses it, adds feathers to it. And sometimes it just shrinks the dinosaur and puts it in a hoodie. You look into your own eyes and think about your brain. It's big, sure, but it's layered. And buried beneath the new fancy cortex, the language and abstract thought and texting thumbs is something older. Your limbic system, sometimes called the reptilian brain. Fight, flight, freeze, hunger, repetition, sleep. That part of you. That's the part that still roars even when you whisper. The part that jolts awake at loud noises. The part that twitches in your dreams. The part that doesn't care about taxes or philosophy, it just wants to stay alive. You blink, and the dream shifts. You're in a kitchen now. You open the fridge. There's a chicken leg inside. And suddenly it's not funny anymore. Because chickens are dinosaurs. Really. They share a direct lineage with theropods, cousins of T-Rex. The beak is just a modified snout. The wings are just modified arms. The feathers are ancient. The wishbone, that's a furcula found in raptors before it ever made it into your family dinner. And if you listen closely to a chicken call just right, it doesn't sound too far from something more prehistoric. Odd fact of the night: scientists once manipulated chicken embryos to grow teeth because the genes are still there, turned off, dormant. But buried in every bird is the potential for something older to wake up. That means you are walking among dinosaurs every day. They're not gone. They're flapping. You take a few steps back from the mirror, now laughing under your breath. It's ridiculous, but also comforting, because it means extinction isn't the end. It's just a handoff. And in a way, you're part of that baton pass. You study their bones. You tell their stories. You imitate them in Halloween costumes and toy models and dramatic theme park reenactments. And when you get quiet enough, really quiet, you can almost hear that ancient rhythm inside your own body: step, breathe, hunt, sleep, hatch, walk, again and again. You sit cross-legged on the hallway floor. You realize you've been walking with dinosaurs all night. Some were big, some were covered in feathers, some were preserved in amber, and one of them is you. You're not just a spectator. You're a sequel. You're walking again, but this time it's different. Not in the Mesozoic. Not in a museum. Not even in a dream forest made of amber and thunderclouds. You're walking through a city. Glass towers, sidewalks, streetlights blinking gently like mechanical fireflies. Somewhere a car honks. Somewhere else someone's ordering boba. And yet, you're still surrounded by dinosaurs. You just don't recognize them at first. Pigeons flutter past you like gray blurs of living fossilhood. A hawk circles above. A parrot screeches from someone's open apartment window. A roast chicken spins behind a display case. The age of dinosaurs isn't over. It just changed uniforms. But that's not what tonight's final chapters are about. No, we're turning the lens inward now. Because you're not just asking what the Earth was like. You're asking why we care so much in the first place. Why do we love dinosaurs? Why do kids draw them on napkins and adults turn them into billion-dollar movie franchises? Why do we know their names when we can't remember where we put our phone 5 minutes ago? It's not just about size. It's about mystery. Dinosaurs are a mirror, a tool for understanding deep time. You walk past a building and its glass reflects a shape behind you, a shadow with a long neck and a tail that drags behind even though you know you're alone. Or are you? Because here's the strange truth: every person carries a bit of dinosaur in their imagination. And for some, it never leaves. You pause beside a playground where a dino-shaped climbing structure is occupied by kids shrieking in delight. One of them makes that universal growling sound children invent as soon as they can speak. Ra-woo-ar-ar, you smile. And then you think about the fossil record again, how incomplete it is. How so much of the story is missing. Blank pages between the chapters we can barely read. And yet we try. We fill the silence with guesses, reconstructions, arguments, and documentaries narrated by soothing British voices. Because the story of dinosaurs isn't really about them. It's about us. We need them to remind us how temporary we are, to show us how the world works when we're not around, to humble us, to entertain us, to haunt us just enough, and sometimes to comfort us. Odd fact of the night. There are dinosaur-themed therapy sessions now. For kids with anxiety, for adults with trauma. Dinosaurs as metaphors, as anchors, as ancient friends who never left. Because there's something deeply soothing about knowing the Earth has been through worse. That entire ecosystems have collapsed, rewritten, re-risen. And somehow, life goes on. You step onto a bridge now, watching city lights blink like bioluminescent bugs across the skyline. Below you, the river flows, carrying stories downstream like sediment waiting to become memory. You imagine time not as a line, but a spiral. Each loop a version of the world. Each revolution leaving traces, footprints, bones, a fossilized sneeze maybe. And here you are, on one tiny edge of the spiral trying to see the whole thing. You touch the railing, cold, real, and suddenly it hits you. You're a blip, but you're a blip that remembers, and that's what matters. Because the dinosaurs can't tell their story anymore, but you can. You can draw them, dream them, argue about them in forums, make bedtime science stories in their honor. You can be the next layer in the fossil record not because you were big or famous, but because you cared. And that's what keeps the spiral turning. Even after the comets fall, you've come full circle. You're standing in the dark again, soft, peaceful, rich, with a kind of stillness that feels earned. But this time you're not in a forest or a museum or buried beneath layers of time. You're in a field, somewhere quiet. Cool air brushing against your cheeks. The stars above are brighter than they should be, maybe because this is a dream, or maybe because you've been looking down for so long that you've forgotten how much wonder lives overhead. The earth is quiet, but not empty. Because even now, right now, fossils are still being made. Every death, every burial, every perfect storm of mud and stillness and silence. The fossil record isn't finished. It's ongoing. The story of dinosaurs doesn't have a true ending. It just pauses, waits, repeats. Somewhere out there right now, a future paleontologist might be sleeping next to a cliff that holds a secret. Somewhere a child is holding a rock they don't know contains the past. Somewhere a species is making its last footprint. And none of it feels scary anymore. Because extinction is real, yes. But so is memory. And fossils, they're not just bones. They're a promise. That life mattered. That it had shape and motion and purpose. That it touched the earth hard enough to leave a mark. You lie down in the soft grass of your mind and stare at the stars. You imagine a future creature thousands, maybe millions of years from now finding your footprint. Maybe not yours specifically, but ours. A fragment of plastic, a fossilized shoe, a preserved subway token pressed into sediment, the outline of your city beneath layers of silt. And they'll wonder about you. What did you eat? What did you fear? What did you love? What did you dream of? Maybe they'll guess wrong. Maybe they'll argue about it. Maybe they'll build strange, glowing museums filled with half-truths and wild reconstructions. But they'll still be asking. And that's what makes us human. Not the tools, not the technology, the curiosity, the need to know what came before, and the ache to leave something behind. You close your eyes, the cool earth beneath you. You think of every dinosaur you met tonight, the ones that towered, the ones that glided, the ones that left only a claw or a sneeze behind. You think of how little they knew they'd be remembered, and how lucky we are to be the ones who get to remember them. Maybe someone will say the same about us. Maybe that's all we can hope for. To leave just enough of a mark that someone someday will whisper they were here. And they wondered too. And now, as the stars drift softly overhead, and the echoes of ancient footsteps fade into stillness, it's time to close our eyes on this long, winding journey. You've traveled backward through time far beyond the familiar noise of cities and screens into a world ruled not by humans, but by giants. And not just giants in size, but in mystery, in movement, in meaning. You've walked beside feathered raptors, slept in fossil beds, touched the breath of amber, whispered across the eons with bones locked in eternal poses. And through it all, you've learned something gentle and quiet. The past is never truly gone. It lingers in the birds outside your window, in the stones beneath your feet, in the shadows that stretch just a little too long in the evening light. The dinosaurs are not just history, they're memory, they're motion, they're reminders that even the greatest things to ever live were once small, once fragile, once dreaming. And so are you. So let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts sink gently like footprints into soft mud. Let yourself feel how rare it is to be alive here now, at the very edge of all this ancient wonder. You carry their story now. Every fossil we've uncovered, every mystery we've pondered, every strange fact you now whisper to yourself in the dark. They've become part of you. So rest well, little scientist. You're part of a legacy that never really ended. Just one more breath in the story of Earth. Good night. End of script. Good night.